Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Trevor Lane here. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Oh boy, what a night it was last night. The NBA draft still in recovery mode here around the NBA Front Office Show. But we're going to break down everything that happened in the draft. A lot of activity, a lot of trades. We'll talk a little bit about what may be to come here as we go through it all. Settle in, because this is usually one of our longer shows of the year as we break down all of the fallout from the draft. But hopefully this gives you plenty of stuff to listen to over the long weekend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch on all 30 teams here. Some of them we will literally touch on and say they did nothing, and we will move along
That's right.
with them. But we'll try to incorporate some of the news stuff as we go. For just example, the Brooklyn Nets did nothing at the draft, but we know there's some swirl around them, so
Just a
we'll
little.
talk that briefly. Yeah, just a little bit, only a little bit of drama that could change the entire NBA.
That's all.
But yeah, that's all, nothing big. But we'll hit on all 30 teams, as we go through this. Some teams will obviously spend more time on than others and get into it. There were, I think, the way it's going to break down, there were 19 total trades in the draft. So, good, active. Just wasn't a lot of veteran players moved. And some of the ones that were, we already knew about, like JaMychal Green, Jeremy Grant,
Christian
and those
Wood.
kind of things.
Yep.
Yeah, Christian Wood, exactly. Yeah, it was like Kemba Walker, DeAnthony Melton, Danny Green. Like those were the guys that got moved yesterday during the draft. So we'll go through that. But first, shout outs to everybody who joined us on the live show. Amazing.
Yeah, that was fun.
Bruno, we had a blast. We had so much fun. If you stuck with it all the way to the end, you saw us get a $50, what we're calling now a donation, because we're gonna turn around and spin it off to charity from I believe it was from New Zealand. Sam from New Zealand.
Yep.
Said if any three of you, because Sean Davis joined us on the live show to help us with the draft prospects a little bit, said if any of the three of you nail who the Lakers pick at 35, I'll do a $50 for you guys. And Sean came through, and Sean nailed it. And Max Christie to the Lakers. We all thought we'd blown it because we were convinced Jaden Hardy was going to be the guy, but it didn't end up going that way. And so shout out to Sean and shout out to Max for keeping his word. And we're going to make sure that gets off to some local LA charity, ideally something that helps like sports equipment for needy kids or something like that. But yeah, we had a blast. And then my other piece of the draft, just personal piece, the draft falls every single year either on or around my wife's birthday. So she hates it with a passion. She does not like the draft. So we're going to cram in as much work as we can today and tonight so we can celebrate her birthday tomorrow in style. So it'll be a long, fun day today. But yeah, let's get into it. Want to start with the Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with the Hawks. So I'll put up the draft list here in terms of who made what pick and all of that, so we can take a look at that. I know the Hawks were at 16, wound up with AJ Griffin. I mean, there was a lot of chatter around the Hawks moving John Collins, and at one point it sounded like they were going to move him before the night was through, and then suddenly that shifted. Obviously, they didn't get what they wanted, and so they wound up hanging on to him. I still think he'll be somewhere else before this crazy offseason comes to a halt. But what'd you think about the pick of AJ Griffin for the Hawks?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think AJ Griffin was a little bit of a slider. I think he dropped a little bit further. I thought he was going to go, maybe somewhere 5-6 picks higher, 10 to 12 range for him. They got him at 16. That says to me they're open for business on wings as well. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Atlanta that maybe Kevin Huerter is the guy who gets moved on from. That's interesting because I think he could help an awful lot of teams that are looking. I mean, for example, if that's where Boston wanted to go with their trade exception, that would be a great get for them to get Kevin Huerter, because I think he'd fill a ton of boxes for them as far as a shooter and a guy who can do some stuff in likely what would be a bench role for the Celtics. But we'll get to them in a minute. I like the AJ Griffin pick though. I think it's good. I think this is a way you kind of roll over the wing position a little bit and get a little younger, whether it's Huerter, Bogdanovich, somebody is going to get moved out of that wing group in Atlanta, I gotta imagine.
Yeah, and you know what? The demand for wings is high around the NBA, so I have to imagine there's going to be plenty of takers if they do decide whether it's Huerter or somebody else. there's going to be plenty of opportunities for them to move some of these players.
Yeah, and then in the second round, they traded and took a little bit of cash. They got rid of Ryan Rollins, who they drafted at 44, but they brought back Tyrese Martin. So Martin's the guy going to Atlanta. That was a trade with the Warriors. Martin, another wing size guy. He might be, because he was picked at 51, maybe a two-way player for the Hawks, meaning on a two-way contract, not a offense defense two-way, but certainly capable of that as well. But yeah, I think that may be where that one ends up. Also, so we'll see. But it's we're not going to spend a ton of time breaking down each individual player, because God, the show is going to be long enough as it is, especially in the second round. But we will mention what they did in the second round. So that kind of closes the door for now, but I'm with you, John Collins. I think that's the
big move.
We're going to be watching that over the next week or so here. I think he'll get moved, officially moved after the league year changes over. Just hard to make a trade now, but yeah, it's I do think best way to put that, I guess, is opening night. John Collins will be playing for a different team.
He'll be in a different uniform. Yep. Good way to put that. Who's up next? We have your Boston Celtics.
Yeah, we're gonna make this one super quick.
Busy night.
Yeah, busy night. Yeah, they drafted one player at 53, J.D. Davison out of Alabama. He is a super hyper athletic guard that can't shoot, and he turns the ball over a lot, so he fits in perfectly with the Celtics. And their guard mix there. But yeah, I mean, this is an upside shot. See what this kid can do. He's a very highly rated kid coming out of school. He's tough. He's super aggressive. There's a highlight that's going around. We'll get to him, but Walker Kessler, who was drafted by Memphis, traded to Minnesota, big time, big 7-foot shot blocker. There's a clip of Davison throwing one down on him where he drove, cocked it back, and then just hammered on Kessler. So people are excited about that. But my guess is two-way player, maybe even a domestic draft and stash in the G League. And
people were a little bit upset. I saw the Celtics looked like they were trying to have to kind of defend themselves for not using their trade exception.
Yep, a little bit. Yeah.
I saw that a little bit of that going on around the Twitter sphere as well as in the comments afterwards. But that, I mean, can still use it. Doesn't mean that it's gone just yet.
Yeah, and I think Brad Stevens, when he did his post draft, basically said hey, we didn't have anything we liked today, but we've got a list of guys. We're going to keep going through that list. And I think had you used it early, then maybe something like Kevin Huerter comes available later. You're kind of kicking yourself because, geez, maybe we should have waited. So there's no problem. They've got till July 18th. So there's no, which is really not July 18th. It's really more like July 2nd or 3rd because things will be done by then. But yeah, they my guess is they'll still use that. They've talked about it so much that if they don't, people are going to riot and throw a fit, going absolutely crazy about that. All right, moving on. Brooklyn Nets. Nets did nothing at the draft.
0
No picks, nothing. But we would be remiss if we didn't mention. So Swirl is Kyrie Irving. We've talked a lot about that already. There's a lot of stuff that came out yesterday, Woj, throughout the course of the draft coverage, reporting it looks like Kyrie might truly be done in Brooklyn. And then Shams, kind of adding in on top of that, then Kevin Durant is evaluating what he wants to do. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because it's going to be pure.
That could be a whole show.
Exactly. But I do think this is now super interesting to watch. This is no longer just they're going to resign Kyrie and move situation. This is a where there's stuff now.
Who has the leverage here?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because Kyrie's going to have a say in where he goes. Yeah. Whether he opts out and is a free agent or he opts in and he has 1 year on his deal. Right. I mean,
yeah, I think
he's got power there.
Kind of equal still. I think he
needs got the Nets help.
Yeah, that's it, right? He's still got the leverage because he's got the option. He can kind of control things, but he does need the Nets help if he wants to get somewhere other than we already talked about it. Maybe he does say, all right, I'll do taxpayer mid-level somewhere because he's Kyrie. If anybody's going to do it, maybe he does, but I don't think he does. So yeah, I would say it's 50-50. And it's
So
in the
no
Nets.
leverage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But it's in the Nets' best interest to work with him, right?
Uh-huh.
Because then you get something back,
Yes.
as well. So
Yeah, what you don't want to do is go and make him super offended to the point where he'll just go, fine, just to spite you,
exactly.
I'm gonna take a taxpayer mid level or something crazy like that.
Yeah. All right, we want to move on.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So Charlotte Hornets, and guys, we're doing this roughly alphabetical by city, but we will jump around a little bit. This will be a spot where we'll do a little bit of jumping around. The Hornets entered the night with 3 picks. They had Jalen Duren was drafted with the 13th pick. We're going to get into what happened with him.
Oh my gosh.
Quite the odyssey. Mark Williams was drafted with the 15th pick. He's stuck in Charlotte. And then Charlotte drafted Josh Minott or Minott. They traded him to the Minnesota Timberwolves for the draft rights to Bryce McGowan. So that one's simple. So let's go back. Let's start with Mark Williams, and then we'll get into the Jalen Duren part of it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, the Mark Williams pick. So, I mean, just a great pick for a Hornets team that badly needs a center. We talked about it a little bit last night. If you get him, I mean, ideally, you're getting Robert Williams, essentially, with maybe a little bit more shooting range. That's what you're hoping for here. And if that's what he turns out to be, the Hornets are in really good shape. They've needed a big man. They can do the things that he can do. It's just one of those picks where you went, yep, that makes all the sense in the world for this player to go to this team. The player, the team, great fit.
Lob threat for LaMelo.
Yep.
In the transition game, pick and roll game. Gordon Hayward's also a guy who can find lobs, assuming he's there. He's still there for now, so we'll operate under that assumption. Terry Rozier likes to throw lobs, but I still have PTSD from him throwing lobs that were nowhere close from his time with the Celtics. But I do think I'm going to put an over-under on Mark Williams as the Hornets starting center of Christmas. I think by Christmas he'll be their starter. I just think they're going to transition pretty quickly, whether Mason Plumlee is there or not, into, hey, we got to get the kid on the floor more and play him. So, yeah, I like that one. All right, so Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
There was – this one was crazy. My favorite tweet of the night was Jake Fisher's tweet of, I honestly don't know where he's going, but he is being traded. I loved it so much because it was
like I've gone through this trade a few times. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how all of these pieces are going to all these different places. This was, and moreover, I mean, and we'll get to the Knicks in a bit. How you executed all of that in the moment, because I don't feel like all of that could have been planned out ahead of time. Good Lord. I don't know.
All right, so let's break it down because that's what we do here, right? So let's go. So to start this chain, because this trade involved the Knicks and the Pistons, but it actually started with the Pistons Trailblazers trade. And we'll get to that. We're not going to break down the Jeremy Grant trade because we did a whole special show on that one. But that's where it started. So the Pistons, when they traded Jeremy Grant to the Trailblazers, he went into the CJ McCollum trade exception. That created a new $20 million trade exception for the Detroit Pistons. Then kind of paused, right? So we're there. The next set of transaction was the New York Knicks drafted Ousmane Dieng at number 11 and then swapped him to the Oklahoma City Thunder for 3 future first-round picks, a 2023 protected Denver pick, 2023 protected Detroit pick, and a 2023 protected Washington pick. Then New York turned around and swapped the 2023 Denver pick that they got from the Thunder with 4 second rounders. I'm not going to go into all the details, just 4 of them, an overwhelming amount. And they sent those to the Charlotte Hornets for the draft rights to Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren was then sent to the Pistons along with Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker went into the Jeremy Grant trade exception that had been created earlier. Knicks will briefly create a trade exception for Kemba Walker that'll last for the next about 6 days, and then that will go away as well on July 1st. So since we're on the Hornets, theoretically at least, Let's close out with them. They get a 2023 Denver first round pick.
Great.
That pick, not great, but not any worse than what they gave up. It is
Exactly.
lottery protected. Denver's going to make the playoffs, so they're going to get it next year. Probably somewhere in the 20s. So, and then they also got whopping four
Yeah.
second round picks, which is
Which
just kind of banana stuff.
and those have value, and that's just it. Like
Yeah.
if you're the Hornets and you're looking at it and you're saying Mark Williams is our guy, we know he's going to be there at 15. Jalen Duren here right now, we can trade this and we can kind of kick the can down the road and pick up a future first, a first next year, not even that far down the road. Next year, maybe it's not quite as good, but we also get 4 seconds, and seconds have value in the NBA. They're treated as currency. They're traded like crazy.
Yep.
I mean, I think this makes sense for the Hornets to do, especially when they realize that Mark Williams would be there for them at 15.
And we heard that the Hornets wanted to get off a little bit of money too, so now they don't have to pay the second first round pick, right? Because that comes off there. So that kind of closes the book on the Hornets, I think. We'll see what Bryce McGowan's becomes for them. He's kind of interesting in the second round, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on a lot of the second rounders. So, but yeah, there we are. So I'm just seeing a tweets come through. Just want to make sure we don't go to play your breaking news drop, but we do not.
Okay.
All right. So let's jump now. Let's go to the Detroit Pistons because I think it makes sense to go to them next because they actually got Jalen Duren. They also drafted Jaden Ivey in the first round with the 5th overall pick after the Kings passed on Ivey. From the trade with Portland, they also got Gabriel Porchita, who is coming over. He is an Italian player who's going to come over at some point, probably not this year with that. And then they're going to take on Kemba Walker's contract. And the all reporting is already that they will buy him out. So essentially what they gave up to do this was the 2025 Milwaukee first that they got from Portland. Not even a great pick, right? Because it's top 4 protected if everything fell apart for the Bucks anyway. And the Bucks, let's face it, in 2025 probably still going to be pretty good with Giannis. It's not like Giannis is in his mid 30s.
Right.
He still should be pretty good. So the Pistons, main thing here is they came away with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that's a really nice draft for them. I think that if you look at it, this kind of comes close anyway to closing the circle on the Jeremy Grant trade. Essentially, you traded Jeremy Grant in order to get this outcome, in order to get Jalen Duren. Now you still have a little bit of a trade exception left over with the now that you've taken in Kemba Walker. So maybe they can do something there.
Sorry to interrupt, but to be clear, that'll also go away because they're going to go the cap space route here in another 6 days. It's
technically there for a few more days anyway. But I mean, I think that if you're building out this team around youth, and Jeremy Grant pretty clearly isn't the 1A guy, that's not really what he should be, and so you decide you're going to move on from him, could do worse than getting a guy like Jalen Duren. And I know I've seen a lot of Pistons fans that are really excited now to have these 2 young guys added in to already having what they've got. I mean, which is pretty good. When we talk Cade Cunningham, that's a guy that can really be something here. And now you're adding these pieces with him. And I like the potential backcourt of Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. That could be really exciting.
I do too. Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. That's 2 guys who can do a lot of stuff with the ball in their hands. And the Sadiq Bey can do some stuff with the ball, but a lot of their other guys are dependent players to have things created for them. And I think Bey's efficiency will go up when he's a little bit more of a spot up guy. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I think too, with Cunningham and Ivey, either you can play them as your backcourt, or Cunningham's got the size where you can slide him up to the 3, Ivey to the 2 if you wanted to play a point guard with them. Let's just say Killian Hayes does come along, or they feel like we want to have Corey Joseph out there for the veteran hand, or something like that. The Pistons have a lot of lineup versatility now, so slam dunk night, I think, for Detroit. All around. And that's good too, because remember we had a little bit of questions like, did they get enough for Jeremy Grant? Like, when you spin it all forward, I think they did. Now
Yeah, and that was the question mark was what are they going to do now with this space that they created, and it ultimately it turns it into this, and I think they were fortunate too that the Kings, and we'll get to the Kings, decided not to take Jaden Ivey or didn't have someone trade up to get Jaden Ivey
Mhm.
because I think he was very clearly the best player on the board for the Pistons. I mean, I would like how sometimes you see the war room camera. I
Mhm.
would have liked to have seen the Pistons war room when the Kings took Keegan Murray at 4.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
No,
I think we
I'm
would
with
have
you.
seen a celebration going on.
Yeah.
Going not to
Kind of
say
like
Keegan
what?
Murray is a bad player, but I think
Sure.
Jaden Ivey is the player the Pistons were hoping would be there for them.
It feels a little bit like when the Raptors took Scotty Barnes and the Magic got Jalen Suggs. Now,
Sure.
that obviously worked out fine for
Right.
Toronto. Scotty Barnes looks great, and I think Jalen Suggs will be good too. I do like Keegan Murray. We'll get there when we get to the Kings, so I have no problem
Yeah.
with them
Oh,
taking
no, no.
him. But no, I think you're right. I think Detroit. I think too for what they were building, Jaden Ivey was the better fit
Yes.
there. So yeah, let's go back and let's close out the Knicks too, because this one should be pretty easy. The Knicks really what they came away with at the end of the night was a 2025 Milwaukee first and those 2 extra firsts from Oklahoma City. So and they're sitting on a Dallas first coming their way, so they got a bunch of picks, and they're probably going to use up 1 or 2 of them maybe to shed a little bit of salary. It looks like the Knicks they now have about 16 million in cap space, and it looks like they're going to push to get to somewhere in the mid 20s, maybe even high 20s to make a run at what we assume is Jalen Brunson.
That's truly what the Knicks walked away from the draft with was cap
Yep.
space.
For right
That
now
was
for
their
the
goal.
immediate.
Yeah,
Yep,
was cap space,
absolutely.
and we'll see what they turn that into. Maybe I mean, does Kyrie opt out and they can offer him a max? Can
Yeah,
they get there? Can you move a few more
they
salaries?
could.
Maybe
Yeah.
that becomes the path. Maybe you're just going after Jalen Brunson, which I mean, for reading between the lines, it feels more and more like as much as Dallas is saying they're not concerned, it starts to be a little bit
I think there
concerned.
might be some concern. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
starting to wonder if it might even be too like Dallas would have to get like really dumb and go like full max to
yeah.
keep him. Which again, I like Jalen Brunson plenty. I just don't like Jalen Brunson at $30 million. I think that's way over the top for him. But yeah, that's going to be fun. My guess is too that's an early deal
Yeah,
on next Thursday. Like by 6:30 we probably have a sense of what's happening there
agreed.
with that one. So, all right. So
All right,
that's
moving on.
that closes out. So we jumped around a little bit, but it made sense with the way
Check them
those
off.
teams are changed. We'll get to Oklahoma City later because they did a lot of other stuff in the draft.
Mhm.
All right, Chicago Bulls getting back into our alphabetical order. 1 pick, Dalen Terry out of Arizona. I like it. Big, wing can do some stuff with the ball in his hands. Can he's active. I think wing was a position of need. Lord knows they've got enough guards on that
Mhm.
team. He's probably more of a guard than he is a forward right now, which maybe means Kobe White's on his way out. I tend to think
I think
that's
it does.
probably, yeah, I think that's probably more tied to the emergence of Ayo Dosunmu last year as a very quality point guard for them. But yeah, it's that's for now that's where we're at. Dalen Terry to the Bulls, and they're still the rumors still persist that they're maybe Rudy Gobert, maybe something else. We'll see.
And Lonzo's injury has to be a factor too when we're
Yep.
looking at guards and the Bulls and what they're going to do there. But again, yeah, I think there's been enough smoke around Kobe White being headed elsewhere that's
Yeah.
probably what we see happen.
And then you avoid the extension,
Mhm.
stuff with him too, because who knows where that would go and those kind of things. So yeah. All right, moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers had, let's see, they ended up with 4 picks in the draft. They acquired one from the Kings earlier in the day. They traded the rights to Sasha Vezenkov. He's a player from Cyprus. Might come over and actually play for the Kings. So we'll get to that when we get to the Kings section. But the Cavs in the first round, Ochai Abayi was their first round pick. First senior off the board, only senior drafted in the first round. And then they picked in the second round Khalifa Diop. He's a big young center prospect. He is going to stay overseas in Spain, it sounds like. And then let's see, going down, Isaiah Mobley was picked Evan Mobley's brother.
That's right.
So he sounds like he will be there. And then Luke Travers, a kid who was picked out of Australia, another young player there. He'll be 21 before this season starts. We'll see. There seems to be some mixed reporting whether he'll be over or not. But I thought Cleveland did a good job of hitting some draft and stash, some stuff. And I think Abayi is going to help them. The wing is the spot where they're lacking. And I think he's just kind of consistent and good. I don't know how much upside there is left because he's already 22. But I just think he's a solid player.
I think the biggest question mark for the Cavs coming out of this is, what do you call the Mobleys together? Like, for example, we call Kurt and Linda Rambis the Rambi in Lakerland. Is it the Brobleys?
Oh, I like that.
Morbly? I kind of like Brobley.
I like Brobleys. Yeah, that works for me. Yeah.
Okay. We'll stick with that one.
All right. Moving on.
That's my analysis of that pick.
Well done. Well, thanks, Trevor. Trevor, everybody. Guys, I'll tell you right now, we're punchy. If you haven't,
yeah, that's right.
All right, the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas didn't end up having any picks in the first round because they traded that pick in the Christian Wood deal.
Yep.
That pick just to close the door, and it ended up being Wendell Moore Jr. That pick was traded to Houston, then it was traded to Minnesota. Flipped. We'll get to it when we get to Houston and Minnesota there. But then they did get themselves into the second round, and with I believe it was 2 future second round picks, they hopped in and they were the ones who picked up Jaden Hardy out of the G League, and I like that for Dallas. I think that's a really nice upside swing for them early in the second round.
Yeah, agreed. That was the guy we thought that was going to be the Lakers pick because of the Clutch Sports connection, but I think it's a good upside play for them. And in the second round, if you see a guy that you think has more value that is falling, then absolutely. If it costs you 2 future seconds to get it, second round is kind of a crapshoot anyway. So if there's a guy there that you think can be a hit, it's worth 2 seconds to go get him and then bring him into your program and see what you got.
Yeah, I talked to 3 different people that I talked to where their teams had first round grades on him. So not super high, but they had first round grades in the 20s on him. And if you're getting him at 37, you've done well.
Good value
for yourself. So, and then obviously the Christian Wood trade, we're not overlooking that, but we already broke all that down.
Yep.
You can find that about a week ago when that trade was made. But just the details on it, it's Christian Wood to Dallas for Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, Marquise Chris, Boban Marjanovic, and then it was the 26th pick in the draft. Close the books on that one. All right, Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets had 2 first-round picks. They had one via the JaMychal Green swap, where they sent JaMychal Green and a future first to the Thunder for the 30th pick in the draft. And then their own pick at 21. With their own pick, they drafted Christian Braun out of Kansas. And then with the 30th pick, they drafted Peyton Watson out of UCLA. Christian Braun, kind of a wing shooter type. Not bad to have around Jokic, obviously. Yep. And then Peyton Watson is athletic forward. Looks like he's maybe eventually be a JaMychal Green-ish replacement. I don't know that it'll be big enough to play the small ball 5 like Green did on occasion for the Nuggets, but they're 2 good young players adding skill to that roster, and probably. The good news for both of them is that team's deep enough that my guess is just a lot of development time coming for them. And they do have a G League team now too. So that's important there as well. So they can assign guys to their own G League team. And then in the second round, they went and got Ishmael Kamagate, kid out of the Congo in France. I believe Congo. I apologize if that's incorrect, but I know he's been playing in France. But he is going to go to Denver, but he's going to stay overseas. That's a second round draft and stash.
So, I mean, I think Denver did a solid job here. You always need wing, especially in today's NBA. You need wing players, even if you get some that it takes a couple of years to develop. If they have to spend time in the G League, that's fine. That's fine. If you're getting wings in with draft picks, you're getting them on these cheap rookie contracts. That's a value because let's face it, wings tend to cost a lot in today's NBA. There is a price premium for them. So I think if you're going to gamble on something in the draft, make it a wing, because that's probably where you're going to get the most value.
Agreed. All right, the champs, the Golden State Warriors. They had one of my favorite picks of the night, Patrick Baldwin Jr. at 28. This is a kid who was one of the top recruits in the class, had a very weird year in college. He decided rather than going to a traditional power, he went to Milwaukee to play for his dad. And then he immediately proceeded to get hurt. And he went through injury and illness all year long. Really didn't have much of a year, looked pretty poor. But there's just a ton of talent with this kid going to Golden State. Obviously, there's going to be no pressure for him to play anytime soon. So they're going to let him kind of do his thing and get right. He's only 19. He'll turn 20 mid-November. So very young there. Then we talked about with the Hawks, they went and traded for Ryan Rollins, who's a guard out of Toledo, another good shooter scorer type. These are kind of the guys with the Warriors. They kind of seems like they roll them off an assembly line.
Yeah.
There. And then they had Gui Santos out of Brazil, a very interesting young wing player coming out of Brazil, but they sold that pick to the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's what happened there, and that'll be executed, I believe, in the next league year, because it's one of the few trades that has not gone official yet, and I think it's just the Bucks are out of cash in this league year. But Patrick Baldwin Jr. and Ryan Rollins, I think, are two really good gets for this Warriors team, that they're replenishing depth, lower, down on their depth chart with younger guys instead of always rolling with the vets.
Which is important if you're going to have sustainability, right? The rich get richer here because they have plenty of opportunity to develop Patrick Baldwin, to let him figure out exactly what it is that he's going to be, to get his legs under him. And I think that's a great opportunity for a young player. Obviously had a rough season, but the Warriors, good opportunity for him to reestablish himself as one of the top guys.
Yep. All right, Houston Rockets, if not
boy.
the Detroit Pistons, one of the big winners of the night, I would say. I feel pretty confident in that. Obviously, they made their Christian Wood trade. None of the guys really coming to them. Maybe Boban sticks. The other three, Brown, Burke, and Chris, all sound like they'll be waived. They then traded the Wendell Moore pick. That got sent eventually to Minnesota, who got that pick from Memphis, and they got Ty Washington. But I'm very much burying the lead here. Jabari Smith Jr. With the third overall pick, he fell, I guess. That feels weird to even say it that way.
Yeah. But there were
three
top guys that were all kind of right there.
Yeah, he landed in Houston. Let's put it that way instead of saying he fell. But yeah, and he didn't seem happy that he didn't go, which I think is probably a good thing for the Rockets. I think you're going to see him come out with a little chip on his shoulder. And fun subplot: Jabari Smith Jr. and the Houston Rockets play Paolo Banchero in the Orlando Magic on the opening night of Summer League.
Yes.
So let's see if he's got a little something for him. We'll get into that a little bit more here too, but just to close the book on their night, they also got Tari Eason, who was a guy a lot of really smart draft people really liked, super duper athletic forward. Go into them with the 17th pick. So some total for the night: Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, and Ty Washington. So the pure point guard, the super uber talented scoring forward, and then the athletic forward fills positions of need too. Not only good players, but spots where Houston needed guys.
I'll have a lot more to say about what happened when we get to Orlando. I think the Rockets were in a very simple situation. We said this from the get-go. Whichever one of those three guys, Paolo, Chet, Jabari, whichever one is there, that's the one they take. I mean, it's just their decision was kind of just made for them, sitting in the third spot. And I actually like the fit here really, really well for Jabari Smith. I know there was a lot of talk heading into the draft that they were getting Paolo, and then the line started shifting on that. Somebody knew something was going on, and obviously the order changed. And we'll get into the Orlando Magic, kind of the draft day surprise. But I like the fit here for Jabari Smith. And if he is upset, if he does have a chip on his shoulder, look, let's face it, guys have made careers off of that, right? I mean, they took
Sure.
that personally.
Yeah.
Like, so
That's it, right?
this could actually be a blessing in disguise for both
I
Jabari Smith and the Rockets.
completely agree. Yeah, I think he's going to come in mad, but in a good way. One thing they didn't do, they didn't trade Eric Gordon. There was a lot of buzz going into the draft that they were going to move him to Philadelphia. My guess is that's off the table. We'll get to it because Philly picked up DeAnthony Melton. So my guess is Gordon still probably gets moved somewhere. But Trevor, I'm going to just throw this at you because this is fun. Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., Jayshawn Tate, Kevin Porter, Jalen Green. That's fun. I'll watch that.
Do you think
that's a fun group?
How many of those guys play in summer league? I'm selfishly asking here.
Definitely Smith, obviously. Tate won't.
Well, Green.
If Green does, that's going to be a very like a cameo.
It'll be like a one game thing.
Yeah. Yep. Same with Şengün. My guess is no. I also don't know what his obligations are with the Turkish team this summer. So he may not even be available. But
that's a fun team though.
That's agreed.
That's
big time
for sure.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah, and then Ty Washington, Tyrese, and let's not forget Josh Christopher, Usman Garuba last year. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of like with these Rockets. That's kind of going to be. I'm going to repeat similar-ish thoughts when we get into Orlando and OKC too. But I think the three, quote unquote worst teams, heck, call it four if we want to put Detroit in that group too. I think all four of them got much better this last night. I think a lot more fun too to watch moving forward.
And that's really what we care about. Not better, but more fun.
Yeah. Selfishly, I'm not gonna disagree with you even a little bit on that one. Something to keep an eye on just with picking up more forwards. Kenyon Martin Jr. sounds like maybe available via trade. Wouldn't be a bad get for somebody on a minimum deal.
Yep.
All right, Indiana Pacers. Quietish night. Didn't do anything with Brogdon or Turner. That was probably always a stretch at the draft. That's probably more of an off-season thing. Yeah, Brogdon for sure. We'll see on Turner. What happens with him. But Indiana came away with three players. Benedict Mathurin or Ben Mathurin. I don't. That one's going to take. I got to find out what's official. I'll have to watch like an Indiana presser to find out what he actually goes by.
I've seen both out there.
I've seen both. Yeah, everywhere too. Selfishly, I'm okay with Ben because it shortens everything. But we'll see. Andrew Nembhard was drafted second senior off the board with the first pick of the second round, and then they but traded a future second round pick to get back in and get Kendall Brown of Baylor, a forward, late in the second round, and then they sold their final pick to the Milwaukee Bucks. That pick ended up being Hugo Besson, the 58th and final pick. Reminder, we were short 2 picks this year because Miami and Milwaukee had him taken away due to tampering. But Mathurin to Indiana, that's the real story here with the 6th pick. I like it. I think that's a good fit. You need wings and shooters around Tyrese Haliburton and start loading up.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't argue with the pick there. Again, wings have tons of value in the NBA right now. You need to have them. And then, like you said, if you're going to, what you want to do is make sure that you're putting pieces around whoever's going to be your guy or one of your guys that are going to complement them, that are going to allow them to compound their skill set. And that's what a guy like Mathurin can do with Haliburton. So I can't argue with this pick at all. And again, more moves are coming. Brogdon, certainly that's on the way. And we'll see ultimately what the Pacers get for him. And we've heard so many different teams involved in talks for Brogdon. So who knows where that's going to go.
And Andrew Nembhard gives you a little bit of cover because he's primarily probably a point guard in the NBA. So that gives you a little bit of cover. If you move on from Brogdon, you've got him with Haliburton, right, along with TJ McConnell. So you can make it work with your backcourt combination. And don't sleep on Kendall Brown. I like him. He's a player. I know Sean liked him quite a bit last night, and he was one of the guys he had as a target for the Lakers. With that, that pick too of Mathurin, that kicked off a 7 wings in a row off the board stretch. That we'll get into a couple of them here in a little bit. All right, Clippers. Trevor. This is where we start making up ground.
That's right. Let's go.
Musa Diabate, big man, big forward out of Michigan. We'll see either rostered at the back end of the roster or he'll be on a two-way. Maybe a two-way. They used a couple second rounders last year. If you remember, on Brandon Boston Jr. and Jason Preston. Preston missed the whole year, but they really like him. But
Boston looked
Diabate,
good.
yeah, Boston looked
He
good.
had
Yeah,
moments.
he can play. All right, we'll go to the Lakers because I know they only made the one pick, but we'll spend at least a couple minutes here. They traded it into the second round, starting the day without a pick. They traded a 2028 pick to the Orlando Magic for 35, and they went with Sean's $50 winner, Mr. 50, Max Christie. How funny would it be if he wore the number 50 jersey? That'd be hilarious.
That would be fantastic. We need to make that happen. We need to make that.
Right.
I'll contact the
you guys
Lakers
need to
and see
tell
what we
them.
can do.
Yeah, right. I guess we'll get into the Christie pick in a minute. And they did okay already in two-way stuff. They got Scottie Pippen Jr., who I think is going to be pretty good. I like him on a two-way. Anyway, Sharif O'Neal, we'll see. And then they picked up Cole Swider, another guy, a big shooter, kind of forward with range there. So two good guys on a two-way. But I was a little bit surprised. I thought they might buy back in and get another.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Especially when you had teams late that had multiple picks.
Right.
I thought they would. But, I mean, in a way, they kind of did the work without having to do that.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think?
I like him a lot. In fact, Sean just texted me a clip of him sliding defensively and containing and then blocking a shot at the rim. I know Sean's fired up about his defensive potential and what he can be there. He's 19, very young, very skinny, has to put on weight and everything. But essentially, he's a 3-and-D style wing who could potentially defend multiple positions. Kind of, I think, best case, you wind up with essentially like a Danny Green type player, which if that's what you get at 35, that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. His shot is gorgeous. It's beautiful. His shooting motion is so smooth. Even though he didn't shoot the three well in college, he shot the three well everywhere else. And so there's belief that he is going to become a good shooter. And he's also great in terms of his balance. So he isn't just a spot up guy. I think ultimately he can turn into a shooter that you can run him off of screens and get him the ball and have him pull up and shoot. So, I mean, could be a great fit, but he's going to take time. Again, 19 years old. He's got a lot of growing to do.
Yeah, he's a young 19 too, because he doesn't even turn 20 until mid-February. So you're gonna be able to play the he's only 19 card like Celtics did with Jason Tatum, and continue to do now that even though he's 24.
He's only 24.
It's still the joke is that he's only 19, but that's we'll run with it. But yeah, I liked it too. I thought that was a good get for the Lakers there, but plenty more to come on the Lakers. I saw some, we don't need a young project, but you kind of do. It's not bad. Even if Max Christie ends up your 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th guy on your roster, that's not a bad thing, right? You have him a little lower on your, probably more 13 to 15, but lower on your roster, probably play some in South Bay, develop them and do your thing that they've done all right with that in the past. So you need at least some young development projects for sure.
Yeah.
All right. The Memphis Grizzlies, active night for the Grizzlies. They had 2 first-round picks. They flipped and moved and traded and did all sorts of stuff and still finished with 2 players picked in the first round. But they also picked up a player in the second round, and they picked up Danny Green, kind of, sort of, we'll see. But anyway, what they did in the draft, Jake LaRavia out of Wake Forest, forward with range, can do a lot of different things. Think of kind of Kyle Anderson, but obviously clearly much, much younger. I blew this on our live show, but he is younger than I initially thought.
There were reports apparently somehow something happened where Google had him listed as 22. Yeah. And that was wrong. And they found out like just weeks before the draft and had to tell everybody like, no, he's not, he's 20. Like, cause that matters in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I had him with a 1999 birth year, and his birth year is actually 2001. David Roddy too, the other guy, that's the guy they got with the pick from Philadelphia, rugged forward scoring kind of guy. He's kind of been the guy who's been great in college, but then those guys don't always translate to the pros, but Memphis has had success with those guys in the past, so we kind of like him. And then they bought a pick from San Antonio with a future second, and they got Kennedy Chandler, a point guard. So I think what the Grizzlies did was, I'm sorry, and then Vince Williams, a wing out of VCU, one of the 4 seniors drafted. He went with the 47th pick. My guess is that might be more of a two-way situation. But what Memphis did here was, by virtue of trading DeAnthony Melton and then replacing him with cheaper salary, they kind of protected themselves or opened the door if they decide, Kyle Anderson, thanks for what you've done. Moving on. Tyus Jones, a little expensive for what we want to do. Moving on. They've kind of now added their depth behind those guys, plus things up. In Memphis, I don't know what you've seen or not. If maybe this is already out there, maybe it's not. They can pretty easily create in the range of about $23 million in cap space, which is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Considering
who do they spend that on, though?
Yeah, that's the problem, because you have to replace Anderson in theory. I do think Kyle Anderson's gone. I think Zaire Williams played great as the year went along for them. I think he's ready for a bigger role. You added Laravia and Roddy. One of those two guys I think can play a little bit more. Jones, though, I think you have to keep. That one I would struggle if they lost him, just because we both love John Morant, but he's probably going to miss 20 to 30 games every year, just maybe 20 to 25, just the way he plays, just so physical and almost a violent, frenetic style. I do think he's going to miss time, and Tyus Jones he's the best backup point guard in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. He's going to get, and we've talked about this, he's going to get half of what Jalen Brunson gets, and he's probably not that far off from what Jalen Brunson can provide you. So we'll see what ultimately happens. I would like to see Tyus Jones stick with the Grizzlies because of John Morant's playing style. Like you said, that's you need that backup there.
But if Kennedy Chandler develops over the next couple, then you've got trade options. So yeah, I mean, Memphis is a lot of different ways. Memphis
they can do some interesting things for sure,
and they're smart.
They could be the surprise team to do something big-ish out of the blue, where you go, whoa,
All right, sure, we're halfway there. Well, a little over because we already did the Knicks. So let's go.
Let's do it.
Miami Heat. Nikola Jovic, not Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jovic. Key distinction. Also a Serbian player. Again, a 19-year-old. He does not turn 20 until June, so super duper young. He will be 19 for the entirety of this season upcoming here. But he is. Let's see what the Heat do with him. There's some talk that maybe they try to stash him for another year. There's talk that he's going to come right over. Maybe ready, maybe not. We'll see. But this just feels like one of those picks that, let's say 2-3 years from now, I'm like, man, how did the Heat do this again? Right? Doesn't it almost feel that way?
Yep. And then we're gonna get a Jovic versus Jokic. We're gonna get that battle.
Well, it's funny because at one point I think we all thought Denver might get him, and then that just would have made a mess. But just to give everybody a little bit of flavor on this kid, this past season playing in the top level in the Adriatic League, he averaged 12 points per game. Didn't shoot it great, only 41%, 31%. But here's what's exciting: 4.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists. He's a legitimate 6'10", 6'11". And there's a belief he may also have maybe another inch or two of growth in there. So a lot of not only just the name, but there's a lot of Jokic comparisons that come just I think somewhat naturally out of this kid. But yeah, we'll see.
All right, the Milwaukee. That's what he's going to become.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's not go crazy. Put that on the kid, but yeah. All right, the Milwaukee Bucks. Busy night for them. They drafted Marshawn Beauchamp in the first round out of the G League Ignite. Again, keeping with the theme of the draft. Well, another wing player who went 6'7", good switchability, fun player. I think might have something there. Again, we haven't talked Dyson Daniels yet. We'll get into him in a couple minutes when we do the Pelicans. But Beauchamp is another kid that G League Ignite experience, so he's coming in a little bit more ready to be a pro. But with the Bucks, got some wing depth, so they should be able to allow him to develop. And then they bought 2 picks, but 2 international players, Gui Santos, Hugo Besson, Santos a wing out of Brazil. Besson is a point guard out of France. It's probably more like Besson or something like that, but
right.
I'm very tired and it's a long show, so I'm not going to even bother looking it up. But apologies, I will learn it. Hugo Besson by then. So, but anyway, those 2 guys probably stay overseas, is my guess, as stashes, but replenish your stuff. The Bucks didn't have really any stashed players, so and most of the good teams do have at least 1 or 2 stashed players. But Marshawn Beauchamp, I kind of like for Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to get, again, I've said a bunch of times, if you're going to gamble on something, it's best to do it on a wing, and there were lots of wings in this draft, so NBA teams took advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Minnesota Timberwolves, super busy night for them. They moved a whole bunch of stuff around. What they landed and came out with is Walker Kessler, 7'1" center out of Auburn. So really a true backup for Karl-Anthony Towns. There's a lot of stuff. We talked a lot about it last night. Talked about it in trade target talks for the Timberwolves. But talking about playing Towns at the 4 more, maybe-ish. We'll see. Neither one of us, I think, really likes that very much.
No.
Wendell Moore Jr. out of Duke, wing shooter. So another wing. We should have made it a drinking game. Everybody would be hammered on a Friday afternoon.
Every wing.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, every wing. Yeah, eat a wing for every wing.
Our 3-hour show would have made it like an hour tops.
Yeah, and we would have been in a lot of trouble too, because we probably have some lawsuits headed our way.
That's right.
And then they traded for Josh Minot in a trade with the Hornets, where they sent out Bryce McGowan's. Minot was a highly rated kid coming out of high school, went to Memphis, and then just kind of didn't do much at Memphis. So we'll see. That's definitely an upside play for the Timberwolves. And then with their final pick, they drafted Matteo Spagnolo, a guard out of Italy. We'll see if he's stashed. Again, probably likely. They did that initially with Leandro Balmaro a couple years ago and then brought him over eventually. But productive night for Minnesota, I think, considering they didn't give up a whole heck of a lot to get the guys that they got. Now, I think Walker Kessler, at a bare minimum, they've now landed themselves a really good backup. And eventually, Naz Reid's probably going to price himself out of Minnesota.
Yeah, agreed. And so having a guy built in ready to kind of take over that role, that's fantastic.
Yep. And Moore comes in, and that gives you cover if you want to move one of the wings, like Malik Beasley, or say in a trade.
And all eyes now on a potential D'Angelo Russell trade. We'll see if that happens over the next couple weeks here.
Yep. All right. New Orleans Pelicans. Sorry, my friend.
Right.
But the pick they got from the Los Angeles Lakers turned into Dyson Daniels at number 8. Then the Pelicans also got EJ Liddell in the second round at number 41. And then Carlo Matkovic, a player that they got to stash likely overseas. He is a big man out of, I think he might have played for the same team as Nikola Jovic. But I would need to check that. But anyway, the first 2 guys, EJ Liddell, player a lot of people liked, forward out of Ohio State. I think people were excited for him. They're also running out of roster spots, so that could be a 2-way. We'll see. Or they might do so. Maybe they eat Garrett Temple's contract or something like that. But Dyson Daniels, I really like this pick for the Pelicans. I think this is another good, solid pick. I just think they're doing really good work building out that roster.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are, and it's starting to pay off. I mean, we saw the run that they made at the end of last season. If Zion is back and healthy, as he's expected to be, this is going to be yet another team. I mean, the West is going to be. I think it was a 1-year blip for the West, where the West was easy, right? Mm-hmm. Making the playoffs in the West was easy, and that's just more of a shot at my Lakers than anything else. But the West,
but the Clippers and the Trailblazers too.
Sure, but I mean, they at least, the Blazers traded away a bunch of guys. The Clippers had a ton of injuries that, knocked out the guys. But you could kind of fall backwards into the playoffs into the West. Mm-hmm. Not so much next year. Next year, once teams are healthy, my goodness, there's going to be really good teams that don't make the playoffs. Now you've got teams like the Pelicans getting more established. They're adding a piece here in Dyson Daniels on top of what they already have and the young talent that's developing, and CJ McCollum, of course, coming in. They're going to be really good next year, and they're going to be a lot of fun to watch too.
Yeah, I think Daniels too. I said I did. It was called. They call it In the Know, but it's NO podcast. Pelicans podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said just pick the best player, whoever you think the best player is going to be. Doesn't mean the best player right now because you don't need them right now. They're already 10, 11, 12 guys deep. So Dyson Daniels is going to get lots of development time. Probably going to play a lot for my favorite team name in the world, the Birmingham Squadron. So he's probably going to play quite a bit there. But yeah, we'll see. All right, let's move to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh boy.
Boy, did they do a lot. We promised we'd get back to them. So let's just run it down what they got, and then we'll really dive into it. Chet Holmgren at number 2. Ousmane Dieng was the number 11 pick. They traded for him, traded 3 future firsts to get him, but it's what you can do if you're the Thunder, right? Because you got them, and they probably
traded protections on those too.
Yeah, they traded, I think, the 3 worst ones that they might have to get them. So good for them. Then they they did something that just makes me laugh, and it's probably not nearly as funny as my tired brain.
The Williamses.
Yeah, the Jalen Williamses.
Yeah,
both named Jalen Williams. So Jalen, Jalen Williams, who is a wing guard player out of Santa Clara with the 12th pick. Then in the second round, they drafted Jaylin Williams, Jaylin, Jalen Williams, with the 34th pick in the second round, center out of man. Did you hear that? Boston accent coming out.
I heard that.
Arkansas, baby. Arkansas. So I'm very, very tired.
This is where we're at.
So yeah, what a mess that is going to be, especially at Summer League. Jalen Williams shoots, Jalen Williams scores, Jalen Williams rebound. Like it's just going to be a mess.
Jalen Williams can pass to Jalen Williams for a score. I mean, you can get an assist and a score both going to Jalen Williams.
Now I am familiar with 2 J's, with a Jason and a Jalen, and 2 Williamses with Robert and Grant, but the Jalen Williams and a Jalen Williams, that's a new one. So that's right up there with the Hornets having Cody and Caleb Martin both.
Sure. So, anytime that you can increase the likelihood that we revisit the which Brooks is it really situation discussions, you have to do it. So now in trade talks with the Thunder, how do you know which one you traded for? Like that?
Yeah, which Williams? Jalen.
Yeah. Right.
No, which Jalen Williams?
Right. Exactly.
The guard one. Yeah.
So the Thunder, there's hilarity that could be built in there, and then you get Chet Holmgren, who he may wind up being the best guy, right? I mean, that's certainly the possibility is out there. I think he fits what they need on this team too, and I think he was always the guy that they were going to take it to, regardless of what Orlando was doing at 1. As long as they weren't taking Chet, he was their guy. And it makes a lot of sense. Let me ask
you a question: should that have been, or when Jabari Smith Jr. didn't go first, should they have pivoted and taken him? What's your opinion?
I think they need the shot blocking.
Yeah, I think this one just balances things off
a
little better for them. They didn't really have because I mean, I love Poku because he's goofy and he's fun and a lot of stuff, but he hasn't really developed, I think, the way they hoped.
Right.
And everybody else there is just kind of a lottery ticket upside play. So yeah, I'm with you. I like Holmgren for them. I'm not big on drafting for fit or drafting for need, I guess is a better way to put it.
It's a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I think, exactly. So I honestly think now, having the benefit of 14 hours or so, or whatever it has been since everything wrapped up, I think all 3 guys, we'll get to Banchero in a minute when we talk Orlando, I think all 3 guys landed in the best spots for them.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument for sure. Yeah. Despite how upset Jabari looked, I think you can argue that he's in the best spot.
Sure.
For him.
And I mean, again, not to revisit it too much because we already talked it, but use that now, right? Go out there and kick some tail. With that. But Holmgren, I mean, super fun. They're going to be able to do a lot of fun stuff with lineups there. I don't know about Ousmane Dieng. He's very, very young. He's another one young kid. He doesn't turn 20 until the end of May. So he'll play all next year as a 19-year-old. So it's far from, we don't even know what he's going to be. I'm just not sure. I mean, he really shot like crap in New Zealand. And his numbers, even in the French third division, weren't that great. So we'll see.
They weren't the highest value first, but still, the
No.
Thunder committed 3 future firsts to
Yeah.
get him. So
Yeah.
clearly, they see something.
Remind me to come back to that in case I forget, because I got a point on that too.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. They see something for sure. I really like guard Santa Clara, Jalen Williams, a lot. This kid was a super duper riser during the draft process. Started out as a second round pick, was working his way into the late first. Then you're starting to hear him in the late teens, early 20s, and here he went at 12. Just give them one more wing ball handler, creator, playmaker type in OKC, along with Giddey and SGA. You've kind of got 3 semi-interchangeable guys that you could play all 3 with Chet, and maybe one more sizable forward or center, and you got something. And maybe that center becomes Jalen Williams, the center out of Arkansas, who also I liked. He was one of the kids I fell in love with during the tournament, because I thought, man, this kid's kind of fun. He can do some stuff. So, yeah, I the Jeng one, we'll see. Everything else OKC did, I'm high on. Can I go back to the draft picks just for a minute?
Let's do it.
So we've talked. This is related to Lou Dort too. I'm going to tie this together.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about Lou Dort and how the going in assumption was they would decline his team option, make him restricted, and hammer out a long-term deal. $15 million a year, something like that. Then we started hearing a lot of news that they might opt him in and trade him. They might not even look to do a long-term deal. I think they're now, with all that smoke, I think they're setting up for 2023 to be, we've got cap space galore. And I think by that point, they're going to say, we're ready. We're going. We're going to play now. Now it's time to start moving this thing forward. I think this year, I think some of the stuff of, SGA is kind of a bad foot, so we're going to sit him out, for 20 game stretches and things. I don't think we're going to get as much of those. I think OKC is going to start pushing this year. I think they're still going to be bad, but I think that's more to your point. The West is super duper deep, and it's going to be hard for them, hard for Houston, who I think is also going to be trying to be better. It's going to just be hard to climb the standings. But that's what I think happens with those guys, because I think we will see that's the way that plays out with them. And then I think 2023, and I think wiping those, even if it was only going to be 1 pick, maybe they get 2 of them, but getting those off the books, that clears those off the books for 2023. You've now got basically just rookie scale guys and not much else. They're doing something. They've got a plan. This is a 2-year plan, I think, that really coalesced around the last few days.
And you have to, at some point, you can't just accumulate assets forever. You have to turn it into something.
Yep.
So if that's in a 2-year plan, then OKC's got a lot to be excited about then.
Maybe the upset of the night. OKC didn't come away, well, kind of, sort of,
with more picks,
with any extra picks. They actually came away down picks. That's a
shift.
Would not have picked that, right?
Yeah,
is the thing that happened. All right, the Orlando Magic, my adopted hometown team, pulled a fast one. They took Paolo Banchero at number 1. The odds makers were on to something, maybe, or got lucky, or maybe unlucky. I don't know. I don't know how that all turned out with all the betting. But they went with Banchero at number 1. They sold the pick to the Lakers. They kept their other second-round pick, and they drafted Caleb Houston out of Michigan. We'll cover that one very quickly. He's just a shooter. But again, wing shooters, drink, right? Add another one and you're good. But Banchero at number 1. I said this on our live show, but in case people didn't watch it, and don't know that I expect people to watch full 3 hours at this point, but check it out because we had a lot of fun. If you're looking for something to do, I said I like his playmaking for others for the Magic. I think
Mhm.
with him and Wendell Carter Jr. now, you have two bigs that you can run a lot of offense through, take some of that burden off Franz Wagner, off Jalen Suggs, off Markel Fultz, off Jonathan Isaac, off of Cole Anthony. Let some of those guys do some of that. You can run a lot of funky lineups, one big lineups with Banchero or Carter. You can run the two of them together. I think he was the player I felt safest floor on while also having a super high ceiling. So I think Orlando got the best player in the draft.
Let me ask you this. Why? Why not why did they get the best player? Why all the smoke around taking Jabari Smith? Like, what was the
Yeah.
like
I don't
it was amazing, and I think we will always remember this draft as this big swerve, right? Which is
yeah,
incredible. I mean, I love this. I love that
because it's
this
usually
kind of
days
drama.
out,
Yeah, it's usually
Yeah.
just we know who it is, and okay, let's move on. And the draft starts at pick 4, and all that kind of stuff, right? And so this was a ton of fun. That last minute, suddenly it's someone else, and it's this big surprise, and all that. Like, that's great. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done it, because I think for the entertainment value, this was awesome. But strategically, what did they gain by doing this, or what were they trying to gain? Maybe I'm having a tough time figuring out what advantage they gained by throwing everybody off and getting them onto Jabari Smith.
Totally fair question. I don't know that it all came out of Orlando. They are very buttoned up. They don't talk. They do their work super quietly. I think back to the Vooch trade, the Aaron Gordon trade. We didn't know anything about those at all. With that, so I think it is. Uh, I don't know that it came from there. I think there was a lot of assumptions made of it's Jabari Smith. That's the guy. That's who they're going with. That makes the most sense. Woj earlier in the day on Thursday reported, yeah, it's firmed up. It's
Yeah.
Smith, Holmgren, Banchero. And then it was what, half hour before the draft? He started saying, oh, there's some buzz. And we opened the draft show not knowing, which to your
Yeah.
point was a lot of fun, more fun than it usually is
Yeah, for
with
sure.
the top pick. But yeah, I don't know. They openly said they didn't work out Banchero. They did some sounds like meetings at points, but they were very quiet. I think you made this point on the live show. It's ridiculously incredible
Oh
that
yeah.
nothing got out in this day and age. Where like I think you made the point, right? Everybody has a phone with a camera now. Like, how did
Yep.
no one catch this? How did the kid not tweet about it or post it on IG or anything? And yeah, I mean the Magic were right there. If it was purposeful, the only thing I can think of is they were trying to get Houston or OKC to trade up
To get
to
Jabari.
to get Jabari, or to hey, we're gonna trade up to get maybe probably not OKC, but if Houston really wanted Banchero, because it did seem like they did, we're gonna trade up to get him. But yeah, I think whatever the case was, I think Orlando came away with the player who's number one on my board. And I think it's great. I think they're on their way now. Not next year, but a couple years from now. I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, they're not 2 years away from being 2 years away.
Yeah, yeah, they're not Bruno Cabocloing it. We're no Bruno Caboclos anymore, man. Mark Deeks was tweeting about this. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get any more of this, like, two clips that look like somebody filmed it from a 19 or like a
A Nokia.
2007. Yeah, block phone that's like, the lens is all dirty. Like, we don't get any more of those. It's kind of sad.
No.
Now everybody, all these guys are too well known. These scouts, stop doing such a good job,
It
man.
looks like it's the footage of Bigfoot from like the
Yeah.
50s or whatever that was. That's
Yeah.
what you've got.
Like the Giannis ones. Remember, it was like with Giannis,
Yeah.
like those 10-foot rims. Like, what am I watching here? Is that dude? Does that guy? Is he Keith Smith sized, where he's not 6 foot and fat? Like, what is happening out here? Is that a janitor?
That guy's
Like,
smoking. What is
yeah,
happening?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We need more stuff like that. And then, as Mark put it too, which really had me laughing, is, and I want to form opinions based on those that I will never change, which mad me absolutely rolling.
Oh,
All right,
man.
speaking of rolling on.
Yeah.
Philadelphia 76ers. They made a move. They went and got the Anthony Melton from the Grizzlies. They traded Danny Green. We don't know yet. They had to guarantee at least 5-ish million of Green's contract for next year to move him in that trade. That trade is official. We just have not seen those details. I looked shortly before we started recording. I've not seen anything yet on those. And they also traded the 23rd pick. Daryl Morey trading a draft pick was basically the lock of all locks.
Yep.
In the draft that we, if you didn't know that one was coming, then, I don't know what you're doing here. But D'Anthony Melton, I like it. That's a good pickup for Philly.
Yeah, absolutely. I like him a lot. I liked him in the draft a few years ago. I thought he's grown and showed a lot in Memphis this year. So that's a nice pickup for Philly. And look, they're a team that needs to win right now, and they got a guy who's ready to play right now. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they were not. There's nobody they were getting at 23 who was going to help them. They already have Jaden Springer, who I don't even know that he'll stick. He could be thrown into a deal later. And I don't think Philly's done. Whether it's signed PJ Tucker or they do something else, but they did take on some money beyond what they could have given Green's non-guarantee. We'll see. My guess is Memphis just eats whatever the guaranteed amount is. Just roster spots are becoming an issue for the Grizzlies. So I think that's the way that'll go down, but we'll see where that one goes. All right, Trevor, we make up more time with the Phoenix Suns, who did nothing.
All right.
No picks.
Way to do nothing.
DeAndre Ayton, that's the story, right?
That's
probably for a single free agent in this draft class that is not Kyrie Irving. That's probably the biggest story that we're waiting for a resolution on. So, all right, Portland Trailblazers didn't do much as far as movement and all this sort of stuff. They did the Jeremy Grant acquisition. We already broke all that down. But then in the draft, they drafted Shaedon Sharpe, kind of the man of mystery. Did not play last year at Kentucky. Really athletic kid, incredible scorer at the prep level. Looks like he's probably going to be a big time player. He's a Canadian kid too, which I think we had back-to-back Canadians drafted 2 times, maybe 3 times in this draft, which is kind of fun too. But let's see what happens with Shaedon Sharpe. Here's my issue with this pick though. This is moving in opposite directions with him and Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant is let's win, let's try to get better, let's try to get back to the playoffs. Shaedon Sharpe is hey, let's develop and really work on this. And that's weird to me.
I was surprised this pick didn't get moved. I thought it would be moved for more win now help. This was also back-to-back alliterative names, Shaedon Sharpe and Dyson Daniels.
Yes.
So you've got that going there. So, just for
a little bit of that
mystery's sake. But but no, when this pick was first made, I thought, why would you do that? Why would you not you got the guy who's the mystery guy who in theory, the floor is very low and ceiling is very high. You need to win right now with Damian Lillard. Shouldn't you get more of a sure thing? Isn't that what you should be looking for? But then, as the night went on, and I'll admit this was after we went off our show, the thought dawned on me, Mike Schmitz is working with the Blazers.
Yeah.
Now.
Yep.
So I think because of that, I need to give this pick the benefit of the doubt here. If he winds up being a guy, then the Blazers are in really good shape moving forward.
Yep. I had the same exact thought. It was actually this morning when I woke. That's probably not a good thing that I admit that was one of the first things I thought about when I woke up.
First thing I woke up in the morning. First thing I thought about when I woke up was Shaedon Sharpe and Mike Schmitz. Oh.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
We've got problems
here now. I will say this too for Portland. They were much later picks, but Anthony Simons and Nasir Little, late picks, both developed, both became really good players. So I'm not going to bet against Portland's development system either. There, even though it is some new folks in there, but they've done well with scoring guards in the past and getting them into being playable guys within let's call it a relatively short window. So, if they fill it out well enough, it's not going to mean anything because then, he can do his thing. One thing to keep an eye on, though, they don't have a G League team, so that's a little weird. But yeah. And then they traded their other second round pick. And then their last second round pick, they drafted Jabari Walker. I know you had him a little bit on your radar because son of former NBA player Samaki Walker, bouncy athletic forward out of Colorado. We'll see what he does for Portland. My guess is he's probably on a 2-way.
Yeah.
All right, Trevor, we're getting down to it, my friend. We got 5 teams left. We're going to whip through them. Sacramento Kings. Keegan Murray picked at 4. We're gonna spend a bunch of time on that. Then they didn't sell, but traded away both of their second round picks. They traded the 49th pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got Sasha Vezenkov, who they do think maybe will come over. I had a nice year last year, I believe, playing for Olympiacos in Greece. And then they traded their other second round pick, which was the Jaden Hardy pick, to the Dallas Mavericks. And in that one, they picked up 2 second round picks in 2024 and 2028 in that one. But Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey. What say you, Trevor Lane?
I mean, I think this is the part of the draft where you don't go fit over upside or talent. And I worry that that's what they did here. That's not to say, but I mean, it's not like a huge reach because Keegan Murray, even the lowest mock he was maybe 6 or 7, right? So it's not like they grabbed a guy who was at like 13 or something
10,
like that because right, exactly. So
they didn't make a crazy pick.
Right. So I don't hate this. I thought Jaden Ivey was the guy there, but again, it could be proved wrong. I don't like the natural instinct is, oh, the Kings, they screwed it up, right? But Keegan Murray's really good, and so I can't fault them too much for this, and it's possible it winds up being the right pick. I just had Jaden Ivey ahead, but again, if there really wasn't a workable trade, I'm surprised they didn't trade down with it, but maybe there just wasn't anything out there that made sense. And if that's the case, okay, then get your guy and move on.
Mark it down roughly the 1 hour and 15 mark. Trevor and Keith disagree. Oh. I like Keegan Murray better than I like Jaden Ivey.
Oh, okay.
I think Keegan Murray's going to be great. I really do. Just watching this kid play just feels like he has that it factor, that feel as a scorer. I think he's going to fit in really well on a team where most of the offense is going to be driven by Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. I think he'll be better as a cutter. I think he's going to shoot it pretty well in time. I think eventually we're going to look back. I think Jaden Ivey's going to be super good too, but I think this might be one much like the top 3 guys, right? And then there's kind of the tier break. I think we're going to look back and say, you know what? Murray and Ivey both went where they should have gone.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily in order, but to the teams. And that part I feel pretty good about. I really like Keegan Murray.
All right. Well, landing spot certainly matters. He'll have some opportunities there in Sacramento to show what he can do. And I mean, who knows? Very well. I mean, like Scotty Barnes, right? Last year, that pick was questioned also at 4 and turned out to obviously be the correct pick.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving on to the San Antonio Spurs. Spurs had 3 first rounders. No surprise, no trades, kept them all. They drafted Jeremy Sohan at 9. That was a pick I called, I think, live on air before it happened. You did. I felt like it was going to be. The pick, Malachi Branham at number 20, and then Blake Wesley at number 25. And then in the second round, their second round pick, they traded Kennedy Chandler to the Memphis Grizzlies for a 2024 pick. That actually is your Lakers pick. In 2024 is going to go to the Spurs from the Grizzlies. So anyway, going into their first rounders, the 3 guys. Here's what this has me thinking. The Spurs have a crap ton of 2 guards now.
Yeah, they do.
They've got, let's just think in the last couple years, they have drafted Joshua Primo and Devin Vassell. Yes, both can play the 3, but so can Branham, so can Wesley probably. But you've still got Lonnie Walker. Here's what I think is going to happen now. I think the Spurs, no pun intended, are going to let Lonnie Walker walk. I don't even think they're going to give him a qualifying offer. Okay. And I think that is going to turn into the Spurs having over $30 million in cap space this summer, which was not necessarily where I expected them to be. But I think they loaded up. I mean, you just don't need that many guys at the same position. It's just it's too many to you can't make it work. Finding minutes for all those guys, especially since only Vassell is really kind of a 3 and none of them are really 1s. So we'll see what happens with DeJounte Murray. There was a ton of stuff. I think DeJounte Murray was enjoying it.
He was tweeting. He definitely was.
Emojis and the popcorn emoji and all sorts of stuff. So they think he was having himself a good time. But as far as the players, I like all 3 guys for the Spurs. I think Sohan's going to be really good eventually. I think
he's a Spursy guy.
Yeah, that's it. I think he's ready to defend right away. He
Uh-huh.
kind of just knows how and where to be cutting and moving off ball. I think Branham has some ball skills that are pretty good for a guard. And then I think Blake Wesley is just another kid that can play too. So I think San Antonio is now, they're going to be working. Let's see what they do, man, because this is, if you have 30 million in space, that could just be Atlanta. You want off John Collins? All right, we'll take him. What do you want? Right.
Right.
And let's go. So yeah, I'm very, very interested in the Spurs, which is not something we always say going into the off season.
Well, that kind of cap space, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be like we look at the free agent class. There's not much out there, but it doesn't have to be used on a free agent. You can use it to
Correct.
absorb some salary.
Yep.
So, especially if you're going to try to offload some of these guys anyway,
Yeah.
the Spurs could be setting themselves up for something big. Like this is another team that could do the out of the blue. Whoa, they got that guy. How did that happen? Type of. We could have that moment in a few weeks from the Spurs.
One thought I had too was, what if they traded DeJounte Murray, then used the cap space and signed Tyus Jones? And now you get Tyus Jones, maybe John Collins, Keldon Johnson, all these guard wing kind of guys.
Sure.
You've got something fun. Maybe they get in DeAndre Ayton Derby.
That's an interesting idea.
With this. Maybe they could do Ayton into cap space and send Pirtle back, and then still have some cap space to play with after, potentially. Maybe. Well, we'll see. It's just, like I said, Spurs aren't always interesting, but certainly are this summer. All right, Trevor, we want to make up ground again.
Let's
the
do it.
Toronto Raptors, one pick in the second round, number 33. They drafted Christian Coloco out of Arizona, 7'1" center. Just the kind of guy the Raptors have had in the past and done well with, a big center who can do some stuff. He's athletic. He can block some shots. There's a lot of different things this kid can do. So I think, I like that pick for the Raptors. We'll see if anything comes with OG Anunoby. Didn't happen at the draft, but doesn't mean it's not gonna. It was funny. I saw somebody saying Shaden Sharp's from Canada. That means he's gonna get traded for OG Anunoby. I mean, sure, why not? At this point,
I
I'm
guess. Could happen, right?
Yeah, you couldn't have told me a few weeks ago that Kyrie Irving might sign the taxpayer mid-level somewhere, and now I'm
exactly.
I don't know, I guess. All right, Utah Jazz, they did nothing at the draft.
All right.
No picks. They didn't do anything. We'll see, right? It sounds like I'm not going as far as saying Rudy Gobert is gone, but man, they are open for business.
They're going to do
something.
something.
Like basically everybody but Mitchell, right?
Sounds like it. And I think teams will be continuing to check in on Mitchell to see if that wavers at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, and then the Washington Wizards to close this out. Johnny Davis at number 10. He's a combo guard-ish. He's not really a point guard, more of a 2. Doesn't really have the size to play the 3, but not bad. I think it was a good pick at 10. I think he was probably the best value left on the board at number 10. And then all the way down to number 54, they drafted Yannick Zoja. He is definitely out of the Congo. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, to be clear, with that. And he is going to be stashed overseas, though. They said that in their Tommy Shepard said that in their post draft media session. I believe it was Tommy Shepard. If it wasn't, it was the assistant GM, but that was said that he will be a stash. But Johnny Davis to the Wizards, maybe a little cover or something happens with Bradley Beal, but maybe could play alongside Bradley Beal. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Washington that they might move Beal more on ball and play him at the point guard if they can't get a point guard. I think there's a chance, especially if Beal's back. I think that might be where Malcolm Brogdon lands. I have a feeling that could be where he goes. But I still like Davis no matter what.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know about the Beal and Davis fit, and that's where if you get in a point guard and Davis is your backup, that makes a little bit more sense. But I think they're going to try to find a point guard. I mean, I think they'll be able to find somebody to run the point for them this offseason. Whether or not it's a Malcolm Brogdon or whatever, somebody else. We've heard Kyle Kuzma's name out there in trade talks, KCP as well. I think they'll get somebody. And then we see what happens with Bradley Beal. He opted out, but as I've been saying, him opting out does not mean he's leaving Washington. That was that was going to happen no matter what. So that's the big thing, is what happens with Beal. Does he, re-sign, which we expect him to stay with the Wizards, and then they go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What was your, biggest surprise that didn't happen
Portland not moving number 7.
Yeah,
I thought for sure that was going to happen.
I think that one, and I think I had bought into the John Collins stuff that he was getting moved at the draft too. So I still think, we're now so far down the road with John Collins. I don't know how you bring him back. Like that starts to turn into one of those, hey, welcome back. We never wanted to trade you, buddy.
No.
Like that feels a little like,
don't be crazy, man. Those were just rumors. None of that's true at all.
Come on, pal. Yeah. There's your locker right there. Oh, don't mind that stuff got packed up. It's okay. We just made it clean for you.
No, your nameplate got removed? What? No, that can't be right.
No, we'll talk to housekeeping. I think OKC not coming away with extra picks just feels weird right after years of seemingly that's all that they did. All around. All right, so without doing full winners and losers, who did you really feel good about after?
I felt good about the top 3 because I felt like they all got guys that fit what they wanted, even though it got shuffled a little bit. I think they all got guys that they wanted. New Orleans, I thought did very well. Once I landed on the Mike Schmitz thing, I thought, okay, Portland may have something here, even if it isn't a long-term fit. I'm interested to see what that looks like.
Detroit.
Oh yeah, of course, Detroit. Detroit was absolutely fantastic. What they got, they could be setting themselves up very, very nicely for the future. Yeah, I think those are the main teams that I looked at and I thought, okay, they really made some nice moves here on draft night. And I commend OKC too. The Jang pick. If that's the guy that they think is going to do things for them, I commend them for. Yeah. They took all those assets. They didn't just not do anything with them. They seized the opportunity. They spent what they needed to go get their guy. Again, we can criticize whether or not that should be their guy, but there's been too often where we've seen teams who haven't taken the opportunity to go get the guy that they want, and OKC did it. They pulled the trigger.
I liked Memphis setting themselves up to pivot with spots of their roster potentially. Minnesota turning 1 pick at 19 into 2 potentially rotation players worked out pretty good for them as well. Yeah. Is there anybody that jumps out at you that just you didn't like their night?
I mean, I tend to look at things from an optimistic perspective. So I tend to look at it and say, okay, I kind of like what teams did here. I know Knicks fans are upset right now with what the Knicks did. And I understand, but the caution there, look, if they clear all this cap space, they could put themselves in a lot of trouble. Like if Jalen Brunson becomes $25 million a year plus, that could wind up being a bad contract. And I don't want it to be. I want good things for Jalen Brunson, but it could be. The Knicks made a lot of moves. A lot of fans weren't happy with the moves they made in terms of just the value they got. It depends on what they do with this cap room that they've got now. That's going to determine ultimately whether or not this was a success for them. But I could see where maybe a little bit of a rocky draft night could be compounded into something even worse if they don't spend their cap space on the right guy, or if they give that guy a contract that is too large and they'll wind up with a bad deal. Yeah,
that's the only one where I'm a little like, all right, let's see, what comes of it. The Portland one, I'm with you, with the whole Mike Schmitz, Shaden Sharp connection. It just still feels a little weird because it just feels like the Jeremy Grant acquisition, that draft pick, are moving opposite directions away from each other. So I feel a little odd about that one still, but we'll see. My main thing is, and maybe it's just because I am being optimistic, I didn't come away from this being like, oh God,
they blew it. Yeah.
Like this team, what a mess of a night. I just, even some of the picks, like if it was maybe a little early, I don't feel like anybody was like, that's, 20 picks too early or anything like that. None of that stuff jumped out at me. I think surprise, maybe I really thought the Lakers would use the rest of their cash to buy a second round pick. But it doesn't seem like we're seeing them go for straight cash as much anymore. And they're starting to run out of tradable second round picks to move to along with a pick. So maybe that was part of it as well. And you do need a balance. They're not going to put too many kids, on the
Right.
back of the end of the roster and development. And you've already still got, I still keep Talon Horton Tucker in that range. He's still a developmental guy to me to some extent. Now you've got Max Christie, you've got Austin Reeves. You're not going to go crazy with, continuing to add, a bunch of guys at the end of the roster. But it's that was maybe a little bit of a surprise, but not by no means am I like, well, they blew it. Like, what a terrible night. Like, it's not at all. So, yeah, all around fun night. Had a blast on the live show.
That was
Again,
fun.
shouts to Sean. Sean was great. I thought he fit in. We will next year. We'll get Sean on earlier.
Uh-huh.
In the draft week to talk about some of the prospects coming up, and then I'm very, very happy to have him join us again on the draft show, and then we'll be coming back live in a week.
Yeah.
June 30th, 6 p.m. Everything opens. We will be live later in the evening. I think we did all right last year, kind of picking. All right, I think it's kind of slowing down. It's kind of dying down,
Right.
and getting.
And we'll do it around some Lakers Nation live shows. Will be sprinkled in there too, but we will get all that sorted out.
Yep. Yeah, all that'll come. You guys know where to find it. We'll tweet it. We'll put the link on the YouTube channel, and then, as always, if you can't catch us live, you'll catch us the next day in podcast form or on YouTube. But yeah, look at that, hour and a half. We didn't go 2 hours this year. We did it, my friend.
That's right. we trimmed down the time and made it happen. So
that's it. And if you listen at 1.5 times speed, like I do, you're going to get through this in an hour. So
that's right.
Mow the lawn and you're done. We helped you mow
happy.
the lawn. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up the draft. Now we look forward to free agency, which promises to be very active, very interesting. We've been talking about the summer of the trade. It's going to happen. We're going to see a lot of moves being made. So make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. And on the podcast side, make sure you do leave us that 5-star rating and review over on Apple Podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.